Our second lesson is from the book of Revelation, part of chapter 21. The angel said to John, "Come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife." And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain. He showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like the most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And he showed me a great and high wall with 12 gates, and 12 angels at the gates, and their names written upon them, which were the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And he who talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, its gates and its walls. The city was laid out 4 square. Its length was as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. Its length and its breadth and its height were equal. And the construction of the wall was of jasper, and the city was of pure gold, like clear glass. And he measured the wall according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. And our third lesson is taken from the work Arcana Coelestia number 4431, concerning Hamor, the Hivite. He represents the ancients. This is evident from what has just been said before. This is concerning the story of Shechem and Abraham, years before the story that we've been studying with Joshua. Hamor was named a Hivite, for the Hivite nation was those who were in ancient truths. The Hivites had been in such truth from ancient time, and hence the name Hamor and Hivite go together. For this nation was in Canaan, and they had some good and truth of the church from the ancient church. And that church had their good and truth from the most ancient church, which was celestial. But afterwards, these nations, like all the other nations among whom the church had been, turned aside to things idolatrous. And therefore, those same nations became idolatrous. Yet because the Hivites had from ancient times an interior truth, and because they were one of the better disposed nations with whom iniquity was not so much consummated, therefore the Gibeonites, who were Hivites, they were by the Lord's providence preserved by means of a covenant made with them by Joshua and the princes of the people of Israel. That they were Hivites might be seen from the lesson in Joshua chapter 9. From all this, it is evident that this interior truth which the ancients had is signified by Shechem and the Hivites and also the Gibeonites. You ever been conned? Somebody come up to you with a great story. They got all the background material for it. Sadly, the church gets a number of calls, and whoever's answering the phone, oftentimes I'll get the call. I'm given a story from somebody, and it's really heart-wrenching because you don't really know. You don't want to be suspicious. Somebody's calling a church for help. They want money lots of times. Oftentimes they'll say, when the first person answers, I need some counseling or I'd like some prayer. And of course the pastor wants to help you with some prayer. I'll listen to what's going on and pray with you. I'll be happy to do that. Lots of times it turns into a long story about their difficulties and could we send them $500, $800. And there have been times when we've responded to help people and give them money because we believe what they're saying, and we try to check it out. Recently, about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a man in Nova Scotia sitting at the bus station with his two daughters at the phone booth there, telling me the same story he told me 3 months before. And I didn't believe it then for a number of reasons, and then when I was explaining, so can you give me the name of the landlord who you want me to send the money to? Oh, no, you have to send it to me. Okay. And great welding job, longevity. Won't go into the whole story, but the word of the Lord is filled with stories like that. Not just the Gibeonites. The Lord Jesus says, don't believe them when they come to you and say, the Lord is here or the Lord is there. Don't believe them when they say, go into your inner closet and pray this way or that way. You should be as gentle as doves, but as wise, as prudent as serpents. You think a serpent, is that serpent really that wise? Well, you know, the serpent's down on the ground and got his eye on everything, right? Try to step on a snake that's actually looking at you. You better not try. We have to be circumspect, which is why the serpent is used. The serpent represents that circumspection of the natural body and mind, of the natural abilities of the mind to look around and see what's happening. We're asked to be that way. Otherwise, as the work True Christian Religion says, if we don't have discriminate charity, we'll end up putting a knife in the hand of a robber. Just trying to help everyone. Just trying to help people with a story. Trying to help people who will come with everything apparently in order. So the Gibeonites, they were smart, okay? Different clothing, moldy bread, worn out shoes, patched and torn backpacks or the bags that they were carrying their provisions in, wine skins that had been torn and patched. Oh, they looked like they came from far, far away. They dirtied themselves up and who knows what exactly they said or how exactly they looked. But they convinced Joshua and they convinced the leaders because they didn't do what they should have, as I said in the children's talk. They didn't stop and inquire of the Lord, okay, you're helping us be successful in every battle, and when we make mistakes, we're not successful. There was that issue with the Babylonian garment taken from Jericho, and then we lost the next battle. Why? Let's figure that out. Oh, somebody had taken what we were told not to touch. Once that was figured out, the next city fell. So in this case, the Gibeonites, in one sense, they did come, spiritually speaking, from a far country. They were of the ancient church with truths from the most ancient church. So there's a spiritual reason why, it says later on in the work, in the Arcana, it talks about why they were preserved, because they represented something deeply good, but clothed with falsities. And we can look back at our childhood and think, like the children of Israel in Egypt, or when they were first in the Holy Land and they're on their journey, we make mistakes. We are doing these things that are representative of all those tribes that were in Canaan. You remember all of them, right? The Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Hittites, the Amorites, etc., etc. You might not. But all these various people represent all these different kinds of truths or ideas from the most ancient church with the ancient church that had all been turned into idolatry. So they all had their various gods. They all had their various formats of what's right. And we're going to stay with what's right for us. That's what idolatry is. When the Lord gives you the truth and you stay with it, stuck fast with what you believe it's telling you. And so we, in the new church, and all Christians, have to be careful. How do we consider the Word of God? I was once asked in a church service by a newcomer after the service, they said, don't you idolize the book up on the altar? You turn towards it, you turn away from it, you bow down facing it. Isn't that idolatry? I had never thought about that before. It was just what I had grown up with. I always worshiped with a copy of the Word opened, closed it later on. We changed that ritual here. I thought, wow, no, I don't believe we are idolizing the copy of the Word. But you always have to watch that sort of thing. All those nations in Canaan, they were of the ancient church, but they took the bits and pieces they had and it fossilized, it crystallized into a way of believing what they believed in such a way that nothing would shake them. That's idolatry. When your mind is so fixated on external things, especially around ritual, especially around the externals of worship. We all have to watch out about that. Now, we've been given a good training with having online services that it's not the same as coming into church. We've lost a lot. And hopefully, you've been able to gain a lot by experiencing what is the true worship experience I'm trying to have right now as you're attending church from your homes, close and far away. Do you dress up? Do you have to dress up? Are you in your pajamas? Are you sitting in a chair where you're not slouching? Do you have to sit in a chair where you're not slouching? You have to think these things through and say, for myself, this is the way I'm going to prepare for church as I sit in my living room or lie down in my bed. It's not something we need to fossilize and tell you this is the right way to do it. That's a beautiful thing about the teachings of the new church. We can look at the things that are written in the Word, whether it's the Old Testament, New Testament, or the writings, and get an idea about them that we just won't let go. And we idolize ideas and make them, in their form in our minds, more important than the Lord's kingdom, and more important than the Lord actually showing us something new. So in the story of the Gibeonites, Joshua was there, the Lord was helping him conquer, and these people come and they just look the part of somebody that has come a long way. Externally, they fit. They fit Joshua's idea. Oh, great. Somebody I don't have to conquer. Somebody I don't have to fight. Somebody who says they'll be our servants. Well, here we are in this new land and all my people are fighting. And I've got this group of people saying they're coming from a far land and they want their people to be my servants. There was something in it for Joshua or for the people as they listened. And the people came, the Gibeonites came saying, it's better to be their servants than it is to be wiped out. They're wiping out this city, the next city. Better to do that than get wiped out. And they were preserved. And what was preserved was something very innocent, spiritually speaking, that is in us. Things that take form in us that can later on be things that ought to be conquered, but they're going to stay there. And the Lord's going to forgive us for having those inclinations, those innocent but misguided inclinations that we'll live with for the rest of our lives. The Gibeonites, the hewers of wood and the drawers of water, stayed with the children of Israel. It doesn't talk much more about them throughout the rest of the Old Testament. But in the spiritual world, what they stand for is an idea that if we do enough good things, if we follow the rules well enough, if we do what they tell us to do, we'll be all right. So we'll take the teachings of the Word, we'll memorize them, we'll follow them, and then we deserve heaven because we've done what we're told. In the spiritual world, when we have that attitude, or when people are like that, they're seen with a big pile of wood, and they're seen chopping wood, hewing wood. Those who deceive themselves, this is the Arcana Coelestia 1110. Those who deceive themselves by placing merit or credit in their good works are represented in the Word by the Gibeonites, who practiced deception on Joshua and the Israelites, and who were then forced to perform menial or low-level tasks such as hewing wood and carrying water. In the world of spirits, those who claim merit for their many deeds may be seen cutting wood and doing other lowly tasks in an effort to deserve heaven. But if they're not evil, these people, if they're not evil, they can eventually be taught that the Lord has regard not to the number of a person's deeds, but to the love that they are acting from. And then they can begin to perform some use, essentially, which is to wish well to others for the sake of common good. Swedenborg approached some spirits who were doing this chopping of wood, and he said, "Aren't you tired?" And they said, "We're not done yet. We're not done yet." And there's a vision that they have of the Lord somehow in the wood. It's one of those things in the spiritual world, I guess you have to be there. But they're seeing, getting closer and closer to the Lord as the wood pile gets down, and there's almost this sense that it never actually goes down. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We have more good to do. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. We've got to do this. You don't deserve heaven. I don't deserve heaven. There's nothing you can do or I can do to deserve heaven. We don't earn our place in heaven by doing all these good things. It's really hard to give that up. It's something that's somewhat fostered in us when we're children, right? Children love to please. They love to please their parents. They oftentimes think if they do the wrong thing, their parents won't love them. And sometimes we might, as parents, kind of use that against our children. A stern face might indicate to our children that we don't love them. But when they do the right thing, you're back in the good graces. And we can grow up thinking that's the way the Lord is towards us too. And it's just not true. It's just not true. The Lord isn't keeping track of all your good deeds, and then, there goes another brick in heaven for your heavenly home. We've heard that. Your deeds don't create a brick for your heavenly home. Your love the Lord gives you is a vessel that can receive the foundation and then the building upon things in your mind and heart that give you the Lord's gift to you of a heavenly home. So the Gibeonites represent things in us that we've been led to believe, and we sort of start out thinking it's an ancient idea that we're going to do good because you do good and you go to heaven. It's not the worst thing in the world, is it? And that's why the Gibeonites were preserved. It's not the worst thing in the world to think if you do good, you'll go to heaven. But you got to learn that it's shunning evil as sin. That's really important. And the Lord giving you the good things to do that provide for uses for others. The Gibeonites conned Joshua. And we're constantly inundated with things that are appearances of reality outside in our lives. We're constantly also in our own inner world reflecting on things and trying to sort through what's really true, what's really best, and having to judge according to appearances. We're told it is the mark of the person of the church to use discriminate charity, to use what the Lord has given us in the teachings of the Word as we apply them to our life. And that's asking the Lord. That's asking the Lord. He's going to give us and appear to us in our minds in those two faculties of freedom and rationality that are His with us. And that's where Joshua said, I'm just going to go with what looks good. We ask the Lord, please help us. Look past the appearances of what somebody's telling me about somebody else, or even about what I think about my good works. We don't do the good works to get heaven. We do the good works because we know to serve the Lord, these things are good. They're His with us. It's nice to look at that story and also see Joshua wasn't punished for making the mistake of not talking to the Lord. The Lord's not going to punish us for the mistakes we make when we get taken, when we get conned, when we think things are a certain way and they turn out to be differently. The Lord isn't interested in counting up the bad mistakes we made any more than we should be interested in trying to count up the good things we do. No, there's nothing we can do to deserve heaven or to deserve hell. When we get to the other world, what we want to do there isn't going to be dependent upon all the things we did, good or bad, in this world. We'll start doing there what we really love to do. And nobody's keeping score. It's not like you get to the pearly gates and there's this scale and you get on it and you fall down and you go to hell. You get on it, you rise up, you go to heaven. No, that's not how it works. Develop those loves, especially remembering the Lord's forgiveness for us and for us to forgive others as He forgives us. Then, unlike the Gibeonites, we won't be trying to earn our way into heaven. We'll just be thankful for the Lord giving us the good things we need, the Word that we go to internally, and the teachings of the church to love our neighbor and forgive them as the Lord forgives us. Amen.